Hello, hello, Jordan Sheridan live. Status Coup. It is Thursday, December 11th, 2025 in the fascist states of America. I actually wasn't planning on going live because I am up to my fucking eyeballs, excuse my French, unfortunately, on the business end of things. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. I will share more with our paying members, hint, hint, on our next members call, which I'm hoping, fingers crossed, will be next week. We were going to do our members call last week, but I was pretty sick, still a little sick, a little better than last week. But anyway, I've been working on some business stuff. We're planning on hiring more people, so I've been doing a bunch of stuff in the background. But I did, obviously we have covered the Luigi Mangione case extensively. I think more than any outlet. We've covered as many of the court motions we can. I have been out there 5 or 6 times outside the court as he goes to his court hearings. And we're trying our best to keep up with it while we're also on the ground across the country covering the fascist ICE/Border Patrol invasion. We are on the ground currently in Minneapolis after being in Chicago for months. So definitely check out the videos we've released there, including the video we released about last night, where ICE literally pointed pepper spray at our cameraman, threatening to pepper spray him for the crime of journalism. So, but I did want to go live because there's just a lot of developments in the Luigi Mangione case. We are now on day 6 of not even his trial. This is the pretrial. Specifically what they call suppression hearings, where Mangione and his attorneys are trying to suppress, meaning get potential evidence against him tossed out so that it cannot be used, or what they call admissible in the trial. This is for the state of New York case against him. And there's just a lot of moving parts. And there's also something that came out in court the other day that I'm not a lawyer, but I think is kind of scandalous, and I haven't seen the mainstream media really cover more. That's pretty shady, if you ask me, when it comes to the chain of custody for his backpack after he was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania on December 9th of last year. So we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that. Also, his attorneys issued a furious statement today because prosecutors provided to the media over 2 hours of the actual crime scene footage, which is now being disseminated all across the public. And I'm a journalist, so I am for transparency, whether it's for Luigi Mangione or not, whether it benefits Luigi Mangione or not. As journalists, we want as much as possible out in the public. But from Luigi Mangione and his attorney's perspective, this is highly prejudicial to him to have the crime scene footage out in the public. It's now on TMZ and a bunch of other places. The crime scene footage, meaning from the actual killing of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. So they issued a long statement, which I'm going to read. And then there is the legal war between whether his backpack, which allegedly they found a 3D printed gun and a silencer and a whole bunch of other stuff in there, whether the backpack and the evidence that they found in there is actually going to be allowed at trial, because they seized the backpack without a search warrant. Beyond that, we have his statements that were made to the police because the police did not give him his Miranda rights for 17 minutes. So there's a whole lot of moving parts of what the judge will actually allow at a trial. And even though the prosecution says, well, we have him allegedly on video and all these things, if the backpack gets thrown out with the supposed evidence and his statements get tossed because he was not given his Miranda rights, it then becomes a harder case for the prosecution to make if you don't have the actual evidence that was seized in the backpack to use. So we're going to get into a whole lot of this. I ask you, I beg you, please, please smash that like button, share this live stream with as many people as you can. We need to get this out. We do want to be able to cover his trial when it happens, and we think it's going to happen probably at some point in early to mid 2026. So soon. We think in just a couple months, one of the trials will begin. We would like to be there every day, but that involves a cameraman, me, potentially freelancers, so we could cover it. And that takes a lot of money. We don't have the money of CNN, MS, whatever it is now, MS Now, New York Times, Washington Post. So please, if you want this case covered fairly, support us, statuscoup.com/join. We'll shout you out as new people sign up. All right. First, I want to get to this court motion, this statement, that was made by Luigi Mangione's attorney today regarding the actual crime scene footage. The actual crime scene footage that was released to the media by the prosecution. Technically, you could say it wasn't leaked to the media, but this crime scene footage was not shown public. It was not shown in the court, and it has never been released publicly until the prosecution decided to put it in a Dropbox folder for the medias to have access to. And again, as a journalist, I am for transparency, and I want as much about whether it's this or issues of, war and peace, issues of corruption. I want it all out there. But if you're interested in him getting a fair trial, you would understand his attorneys object to crime scene footage being out there in the public because they are trying to get as much as humanly possible suppressed, meaning not allowed in a trial. I'm going to read you most of this statement. This was made by Karen Friedman Agnifilo. She is Luigi's lead lawyer. She made it at court today because the prosecution basically is playing fast and loose to try and release as much as humanly possible to the public, meaning to try and release as much as humanly possible to a jury before those jurors are even selected. Let me read this. This again is remarks from her. The following statement was delivered at the outset of the 6th day of testimony during the People of New York, the People versus Mangione suppression hearing. This will be replaced by an excerpt from the official court transcript. So this is Luigi's lawyer. We bring to the court's attention People's Exhibit 3A, which the People uploaded to their media Dropbox account on Tuesday, December 9th, 2024. Now, why is it important that the prosecution uploaded it to the media Dropbox account? Translated, just gave it to the media. The media has access to the Dropbox account on December 9th. Well, December 9th was the 1-year anniversary of Luigi's arrest, which the media was covering, the 1-year anniversary of Luigi's arrest in Altoona, Pennsylvania. So the prosecution sent over 2 hours of crime scene footage to the media on the anniversary of his arrest. This exhibit was introduced into evidence on the first day of the hearing, December 1st. That's talking about the first day of the suppression hearing, which we were on the ground covering outside, over the defense's objection. Yet, despite having never been publicly released or played in court, the People provided it to the media on December 9th. Exhibit 3A consists of 2 hours and 24 minutes. So we're talking almost 2.5 hours of highly sensitive CCTV footage depicting the December 4th crime scene, referring to the murder of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. It was introduced alongside People's Exhibit 3B, a 50-second excerpt from Exhibit 3A that had previously been released to the media and was played in open court. Unlike 3B, Exhibit 3A has never been publicly disseminated, never been shown in this courtroom, and has never been referenced by any testifying witness. So basically what that means is this almost 2.5 hours of footage was basically never part of any of the court motions. It was not shown in court. Witnesses weren't asked about it. It wasn't a part of any of the pre-trial court motions. The unreleased footage in Exhibit 3A contains more than 2 hours of graphic and sensitive content. The shooting itself, the victim lying on the ground, civilians interacting with law enforcement, police establishing a crime scene, CPR efforts, the descendant being loaded onto an ambulance, and other images that the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has historically never released. That's important because there's been a lot of things that are typically don't happen, including terrorism charges for a targeted killing that were thrown out. But this kind of stuff is never released before a trial by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, particularly not during a suppression hearing. The irregularity of the people's conduct, meaning the prosecution, is further underscored by their decision not to redact civilian faces, a step they have taken for other exhibits in this hearing and throughout long-standing district attorney practice. Predictably, once uploaded, footage from this lengthy video immediately circulated across multiple media platforms where portions of it have already been viewed by countless members of the public. For example, one social media posting already has over 150,000 views, and a social media posting by TMZ has over 1 million views. Releasing the full unredacted video served no law enforcement purpose at the time of the incident and played no role in locating the perpetrator, which explains why it was not released then. The only plausible reason for releasing it now, precisely on the anniversary of Luigi's arrest, is to influence public perception and materially prejudice Mr. Mangione, essentially get it in front of prospective jurors. The people are plainly attempting to use this suppression hearing as a vehicle to litigate their case in the court of public opinion. When the people introduced their exhibits, the transcript confirms that they referred only to Exhibit 3, never discussing Exhibit 3A or referencing its contents in any examination of the DCPI, that's the New York Police Department's Public Information Office, or any subsequent witness. The sole justification the people offered for Exhibit 3 was that it had been publicly released by the NYPD and aired by news outlets, including Fox News and Altoona, which is true only of Exhibit 3B, meaning which is true only of about a 50-second clip from the crime scene. The people questioned the New York Police Information Office extensively about each publicly released photo and video, yet never once mentioned Exhibit 3A. Again, just to break it down, never once mentioned a 2.5-hour crime scene video. Videos, I should say. There are more than one. They elicited testimony that one of the New York PD's information office's major function is to release images that would help locate a suspect. In contrast to the other exhibits introduced through this witness, the people elicited no testimony whatsoever regarding Exhibit 3A, nor did they play it on open court. There was, of course, no legitimate reason to do so. And because it was never played or discussed in court, Exhibit 3A serves no First Amendment access purpose. Its release is only one effect: to prejudice Mr. Mangione before trial. And again, this wasn't technically leaked by the prosecution, but it was never shown in court, and it has never been released publicly. So for all intents and purposes, the prosecution just decided, let's get this to the media. The people's introduction of Exhibit 3A was also misleading. In questioning the witnesses about Exhibit 3, the people repeatedly referred to the video, not the videos, because again, this is several videos. Both the people and the witness used the singular, and the witness's testimony clearly addressed only Exhibit 3B, which is a 50-second video. The people then stated, quote, "I would now like to display the video." After the court overruled the defense objection, the people played only Exhibit 3B and concluded their questioning. They never mentioned Exhibit 3A and did not play it. Several witnesses have since testified, and none have referenced Exhibit 3A. So essentially, the prosecution never brought up this 2.5-hour video of the crime scene footage. If they did, I assume there would have been a legal fight. And then, for all intents and purposes, kind of just leaked it out to the media. The witness called thus far by the people have instead corroborated the defendant's motion to suppress, that Mangione was in custody within seconds of Altoona police arriving at the McDonald's, that officers conducted a warrantless search of his belongings, and that the items searched were not in his immediate control. Rather than confront these constitutional violations, the people are attempting to distract from a botched arrest by shaping the public narrative through the selective and sensational release of evidence. This sustained and deliberate attempt to prejudice Mangione has real and irreversible consequences. He's facing the death penalty in a concurrent federal case with a motion pending in front of Judge Garnett. All right, so let's break this down because it kind of gets complicated with legal terms and everything else. Put aside for a second what you think of Luigi Mangione. There's plenty of people in the audience that support him. There's plenty of people who tell, if you support him, say you are supporting murder. Put aside him. If we have a just, fair legal system in this country, which, to be abundantly clear, we do not. We have one for wealthy white people. I give you Jeffrey Epstein and all the people in his child sex trafficking ring, which might include the president of the United States. Excuse me, likely includes the president of the United States. You have one for white, rich, privileged, not spoiled white people. You have another for what's left of the middle class of white people, which isn't a lot. And then you got black, brown, indigenous people. If we have a fair legal system, you have to just think of all the abnormal things that have been done that are prejudicial to Luigi Mangione. And it's not about Luigi Mangione. I would say this about anyone. Number one, the NYPD was leaking shit to the media before they even provided that evidence to Luigi's defense. They were releasing evidence and leaking evidence through multiple documentaries in 2025. Okay. Again, before Luigi Mangione's defense even got that discovery, meaning the evidence. The prosecution legally has to provide the evidence, i.e. the discovery process, to the defense. There have been people who actually committed the crimes where they were ruled not guilty because prosecutions in the past have illegally withheld evidence from the defense. So you had the prosecution, in this case, NYPD. You had Eric Adams, the corrupt New York City mayor, talking about evidence in documentaries, the chief of police of the NYPD, et cetera, et cetera. Number two, you also have here, in addition to leaking through the public evidence before giving the discovery over, I mean, think of all the things here. The prosecution accidentally listened in on a phone call between Mangione's lawyer and Mangione. The prosecution accidentally, Aetna, whatever, sent all of this man's medical records to the prosecution. And instead of not looking, not disseminating it, they went through it, even though they said they didn't. They clearly did. There is a law called HIPAA. So murder or not, your medical records are supposed to be protected. I mean, I went through eavesdropping on the conversation, the leaking stuff to the media. There's other stuff that I'm forgetting at this point because I haven't slept in 5 months, thanks to my wonderful 7-month-old son. But there's been, the death penalty. The fact that normally the Department of Justice would take as much as a year to vet whether the death penalty is warranted in a case. They took 3 to 4 months before the Attorney General of the U.S. announced, we are going after this man for the death penalty. And oh, by the way, I'm going to go on Instagram, I'm going to go on Fox News and call him guilty, not alleged. So they short-circuited the entire process of vetting whether this man is guilty to basically declare him guilty in the eyes of the public. So every step of the way, they have been doing things that normally are not done in criminal proceedings that are prejudicial and do not give him the right to, in my opinion, don't give him the right to a fair trial. Not to mention that the NYPD charged him with terrorism when you have mass shooters in this country that have killed over 20 people, the El Paso Walmart killer, the Parkland school shooter, that they were not given the death penalty. But the death penalty, terrorism charges were brought here when there have been mass shooters that were now charged with terrorism. Luckily, a judge dismissed that. But I'm stacking up all of this to show you it seems that this alleged murderer is being treated differently because of who the victim was, or shall I say the class of the victim. Because as much as this is about healthcare and the bipartisan disgust with the hell care system, the for-profit scam system we have. This is also fundamentally about a backlash against capitalism. Now, I'm not condoning political violence. I don't condone it. I've said that all along. But as JFK once said, if you make peaceful resistance impossible, violent revolution becomes inevitable. And as the masses are further fucked by Trump, Medicaid being gutted, he's now today announcing he wants to give more corporate tax cuts on top of the corporate tax cuts as he already gave in the big, beautiful bank robbery bill. AI is replacing jobs. All costs are going up. Healthcare, utilities, rent, food, electric bills. I mean, we could go on. We're going to have college graduates have the highest unemployment rate in this country. I mean, we could keep going down the list. Foreclosures are rising. Evictions are rising. Credit card delinquencies are rising as the government is literally pouring hundreds of billions of dollars of government money, so corporate welfare, to big tech companies to double down on AI to replace your jobs. Do we really think there's not going to be a backlash from that? Do we really think there might not be some violence? That doesn't make it right. I'm not calling for it, but that's kind of the inevitable reaction here. And now you have the prosecution basically sending 2.5 hours of crime scene footage that the defense was going to argue against being allowed in the trial, I presume, just sending it all to the media. Again, as a journalist, I'm for transparency, but you would have to think if you're his lawyers or his family or him, I mean, how much of the deck could be stacked against him for an eventual juror? You're not going to be able to find many jurors that haven't seen some of this. And the point is to the point of the pretrial hearing is to give him or anyone a chance of a fair trial, right? So that's number one. That was released today. But there's something even more, I think, shall we say, scandalous that I have not heard a peep from the media about. I haven't heard the mainstream media talk about this at all. I had to ask people who were inside the court about it because I didn't see the mainstream media talk about it at all. Colin, if we could show the tweet. This is from an account called Luigi Case Files. I don't know who this is, but they update on Luigi. For all I know, it's somebody in his family or a super fan. I have no idea. Breaking. This was from the other day. During Karen Friedman's cross-examination, Officer Wasser testified that she and Officer Fox, these are the Altoona Police Department officers, some of whom, because there was about 10 that surrounded him, but some of the ones that made the original arrest didn't issue his Miranda rights for about 17 minutes, didn't have a warrant to search his backpack, etc. Officer Wasser testified that she and Officer Fox pulled over on the way to the precinct so he could transfer the McDonald's bag containing evidence into her car while both of their body-worn cameras were off. She also testified she didn't turn her camera on until she arrived at the precinct, where she opened the backpack and found the firearm. Let me repeat. They pulled over without their body cameras on to transfer a McDonald's bag containing evidence and then took it to the precinct. A source of mine who was in the court during this exchange told me that the cop said he claimed the stop was 10 to 12 seconds involving him putting the McDonald's bag in her car and driving away, and that neither opened the backpack. From the source, it's highly suspect. Okay, well, first of all, again, put aside Luigi Mangione. If you watch Law and Order, there's something called chain of custody. Number one, why was there a need to... I've been to Altoona, Pennsylvania. It's not a big town. I'm assuming from the McDonald's to the police department, it could not have been that far. If somebody's from Altoona, Pennsylvania, Want to tell me in the chat? I've been there. It's not a big city. It's kind of a deindustrialized town in Western Pennsylvania, about an hour and a half, I believe, or 2 hours from Pittsburgh. Why did you have to pull over and transfer the McDonald's bag? Why couldn't you have just taken it straight to the precinct? And if you pulled over and transferred the McDonald's bag, is the public just supposed to trust that nothing was done with the backpack? I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but these are the things that a competent defense attorney would kind of tackle. So you're saying you had no cameras and you stopped for 12 seconds. I don't know how you transfer anything in 12 seconds from one car to the next. How did you come up with 12 seconds? And how can we trust that it was 12 seconds if you didn't have your body camera on? But how would the public know that you didn't go inside the backpack? Chain of custody issues, potential contamination of evidence. I mean, literally, you could just watch Law and Order a few times and you would come up with this. Colin, am I wrong? Like, I'm not trying to sit here and be like a Luigi Mangione super fan, because I'm not. Like, I'm covering this case because I think as important as the case is the murderous for-profit predatory healthcare or health insurance scam. But am I wrong that it sounds highly suspect that they had to transfer a McDonald's bag with evidence and it only supposedly took 12 seconds where their body cam was off? Are we just supposed to trust that?
I've seen body cam videos where they're much more, they have the actual evidence bags for just weed like busts, where they like have the evidence bag and they put it in the special spot inside of the car and they tell the officers where it is and then close the back of the car so you know it's there. The fact they used a McDonald's bag to begin with is hilarious, that they don't even have a plastic bag on their person. But yeah, I've never, in all the times I've seen or watched police do stuff, seen them like have to stop partway through with body cams off to give evidence to a separate car. That seems antithetical.
And also, let's be honest here. If that was Jeffrey Epstein's case, or I don't know, Jared Kushner, or name your white scumbag. I mean, there's plenty of black scumbags too, but for the purposes of America, rich white person. You think there wouldn't be a mistrial in 2 seconds if potential evidence they stopped somewhere to transfer it without a body cam? You think that defendant wouldn't be given every single benefit of the doubt? So here we have the death penalty right away. We have terrorism charges. We have the prosecution is accidentally listening in on his phone calls with his attorney. We have 120 pages of his HIPAA-protected medical records accidentally sent to the prosecution, who didn't look through them. Now we have them sending 2.5 hours of the crime scene to the media, which, again, I'm for transparency, but it wasn't even shown in court. Witnesses weren't even asked about it. And the prosecution was basically a bait and switch. They alluded to a 50-second video. They didn't say anything about a 2.5-hour video. And then they send it off to the media, who's running wild with it. And now you have what seems to me, at least to give the appearance of a massive chain of custody issue. I don't know, man. I don't know. It is something else. Something else. Now I want to get into the actual legal war here, because this is very unusual. You know, what's going on right now, they call it a map hearing in legal terms. But basically, you have 6 days for a suppression hearing. Suppression hearings, which are the defense trying to get evidence tossed out where it can't be used at trial, it usually happen. It maybe goes for a few hours, tops a day. This is now day 6. Not to mention, you got New York State case against him, but you also got the federal case against him. and the Pennsylvania case against him. And who's going to go first? There's a lot of moving parts here. But this has gone on for 6 days, and there are a lot of lawyers that appear on TV quite often, including ones that have been in high-profile cases, from OJ to others, that are saying he has a point. His lawyers have a point that the backpack might have to get tossed, and the evidence might need to be tossed. That any statements he made might need to be tossed. I don't know what order you have it in, Colin, but we have a bunch of clips here of lawyers discussing this specific hearing and whether the backpack should be thrown out because there was no warrant for it. And also, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not going to bullshit you, but I've been following it enough to know there's a lot of specific legal terms and exceptions that police can use to search something without a backpack. Search something without a warrant, whether they have reason to fear that there could be a bomb or guns in there, whether they have reason to suspect that themselves or the wider public nearby could be at risk safety-wise. So there are exceptions where you can search something without a warrant. The question is, in this case, was this an urgent emergency? Did they have a right to search the backpack without a warrant? And did they have the legal right to question him for upwards of 17 minutes? So let's play the first clip.
Brian, the defense says police illegally searched the suspect's backpack. How strong do you think that argument is?
I think it's a fairly strong argument. I made this argument before in court. And if we can throw over the picture real quick where we see Luigi Mangione circled by officers. And I think this little black blip or dot you see there in the corner just above my name, that's his backpack. And the way the law works in New York is you cannot do a warrantless search of a container or a backpack of something of that nature unless there's certain exceptions. Unless, one, that bag is in that person's grabbable reach. Doesn't appear like that by the photo. And if there's some sort of exigent circumstance, a need to get into that bag, say, for example, you're accused of poisoning someone. In order to save that person's life, you need to find out what that poison is inside that bag. Here, unfortunately, the victim in this case is already deceased. There's no emergency. And so by New York law, a warrant should have been issued for that backpack before it's searched. And if they did it incorrectly, that could be suppressed.
So what happens if the defense does get this evidence thrown out? How does that change the prosecution's case?
So the specific argument as to the bag is what's called a map hearing. So you're talking about the physical contents of that bag. So imagine going to trial with none of the contents of that bag, right? You don't have the 3D printed gun. You don't have the magazine. You don't have the silencer. You don't have this journal or manifesto, as they were arguing to try to call it. You don't have the electronics that's inside of it. Imagine a trial for Luigi Mangione without any of those. It becomes a much more difficult case for the prosecution, a much stronger one for the defense.
So the lawyer makes a good point there. This arrest happened in Pennsylvania, but this case is in New York. So this is based on New York law, right? And at the end of the day, I mean, if based on the audio we heard, based on the audio that has been released of the Altoona police officer saying, I think this is him, meaning I think this is the United Healthcare killer. If you thought it was him, well, shouldn't you arrest him right away? I mean, you have probable cause if you think this is the guy from the biggest manhunt in America that was going on at that time a year ago. And if you're going to arrest him right away, you should issue his Miranda rights, and you should immediately get a search warrant, which you could probably get just by making a call and waiting 5 minutes. And did you have immediate, urgent reason to think there was a bomb in the bag? He had guns, etc. Let's play the next one.
The cop said, I knew it was him within 2 seconds. And first of all, it's this, if you think it's a guy who executes people on the street, damn, that guy's got to be dangerous. And then also it took 13 minutes from arrival of the cops to separate him from the bag at his feet, which, ostensibly could have a gun. What did you make of that as a defense attorney? Is this very problematic for the state in keeping the search of the backpack into the case?
Oh, yeah, I think that's a problem because you either know that it's him and you know that there's an immediate threat and you have to come in and secure the area, or you're not sure that it's him. And in that situation, what could they have done in that 13 minutes or that 17 minutes before they Mirandized him to determine that this was Luigi? How did they're going to have to tell us how in that 17 minutes they determined that those eyebrows were really Luigi's. And I don't hear any information coming in that 17 minutes that says they locked it down. They knew that this was the guy exactly. It all was a fishing expedition, and that's why they waited 17 minutes to give him his Miranda rights, because they did not know it was him. So they didn't know that that backpack was dangerous. And yeah, I think it's a huge issue.
So the Miranda, for me, and again, I'm a bit of an idiot when it comes to this, the Miranda is not as big a deal for me as the warrantless search of the backpack, because the backpack has the gun and the manifesto, which is literally the case, with a beautiful Christmas bow on top of it. And so if there's any possibility they can throw this backpack search out of the case, you know, I think it's a more worrisome case, not necessarily game over, but I think it's more worrisome for the prosecutors. Everybody else up until today, and this timing issue, was saying, this is just pro forma. You're just protecting the record. You're just making sure this isn't ineffective assistance of counsel. You're just making sure there's not going to be an effective appeal. And then today, all this timing made me concerned. Do you truly believe that 10 minutes before you actually get that backpack away from him is enough to say you weren't too scared of what was in that backpack to require an emergency search of that backpack without a warrant? You weren't too scared, therefore you had to have a warrant.
So this is why our legal system is beautiful, right? Because we have 12 jurors that are going to have opinions on the evidence in sometimes 12 different ways. And, you know, I think that not Mirandizing him for 17 minutes and talking to him there is a huge issue. And if you were on the jury, you would be stuck on that backpack. And I think that the police are giving the prosecution the problem of having to argue two inconsistent theories. And there is law that says that the prosecution cannot argue two different theories of prosecution. So that's one of the questions. And I know I'm getting into the weeds here, but this is going to get very, very complicated. And there are going to be arguments that the defense is going to make that are going to be foreign and hard to follow. But the prosecution cannot argue both that they were in imminent fear, the officers, and that they needed to wait to figure out what was going on. That is exactly the issue. And that's why we have lay people on the jury instead of professionals, because even though you don't know the law, you've honed in on the actual exact issue. Is that how can you forego his constitutional rights to be free of illegal search and seizure without a warrant if you are not scared enough to take that backpack within minutes, within seconds?
So,
I mean, really, that's what it comes down to. You could argue, all right, 5 minutes maybe. They didn't give him his Miranda rights. 5 minutes before they took the backpack. Even that would be a long time if you thought there was an imminent threat here. And that's basically, I mean, the officer called in, I'm 100% sure it's him. Others who say it's no big deal say, they were trying to make small talk to diffuse the situation. They knew it was him, but they, took the fake ID and, went through the motions of looking it up, but they knew it was him. But if you think that this is the guy who just gunned down the CEO in cold blood and he's sitting right there, you're probably going to cuff him. And you wouldn't, and you have probable cause at that point, because you had people from the McDonald's calling in uncomfortable saying, I think this guy looks like the suspect we're seeing on TV. And you would say, well, we don't know what's in that bag. And the officers' lives are 17 minutes is a lot different than an immediate or urgent need where we need to get that backpack without a warrant. Now, some could say, well, even if the backpack is thrown out, even if some of his statements are thrown out, they still have him allegedly, again, it's alleged for now, on video doing it. They might have other evidence that they haven't discussed, maybe, but it's a lot harder to prove without the actual evidence. Let's play some other legal opinions.
It had to go to the officer's state of mind and surrounding circumstances when they first made contact with him. They now believe they are perhaps contacting an armed and dangerous person who committed a brazen assassination. That's going to influence how they treat him, whether or not they search his backpack, right, whether or not they need to be concerned about officer safety, which leads to all the other evidence that they found and why that will probably be admissible.
You agree?
I absolutely agree. As law enforcement officers, we are enforcing the laws, but we also must obey the laws when we're gathering evidence. But it's important to note that when there's a search incident to an arrest like this, the backpack was probably around him or within his control. As a law enforcement officer, you do have the right, that is an exception to the Fourth Amendment, because of officer safety or because of evidence preservation. I do believe that will end up being admissible. To me, that one seems pretty clear-cut.
So those are people that are kind of, all the evidence will be allowed. But again, if you thought there was a risk to an officer, what officer waits 17 minutes to take the backpack? If you thought there was like an urgent risk, you're not waiting more than, maybe a minute. So it's what that first lawyer said. You can't argue two things that contradict each other. It does seem from the timeline that they didn't think there was an urgent threat here. And it seems like they weren't sure it was him. That's what it seems like to me. Let's play the next one.
People inside of the place where he was detained and later arrested, body cam video showing what was going on, and all kinds of other indicia that there was not an emergency here. If that's the case, the fact that the backpack was searched, there was no emergency without a search warrant. If this were a lesser high-profile case, I would tell you that it was touch and go as to whether the prosecution could make this search make their compelling argument to his honor, because this really is not what's called an exigent circumstances search. They have a real hard time telling the judge they needed to do it. They couldn't have gotten a warrant.
That is Mark Garagos. He's one of the top lawyers in the country. Wasn't he involved in OJ? I think he was involved in the OJ case and some other high-profile cases. He's saying they should have got a warrant. Let's play the next one.
That the interesting thing about this case is you've got parallel prosecutions, both federal and state, and the law on the searches differ federally in New York State. I'm not so sure that the inevitable discovery at that point, based on this body cam and based on the other numerous witnesses that they've shown, is going to carry the day. I do agree on the statements and where I think prognosticating where the judge is going to come out. I'm not so sure on the search. And by the way, in cases like this, I wouldn't bet on a search being suppressed under almost any circumstances in this high profile of a case. But for the very reason I said, knowing you've got a backstop of the feds and a different standard for the inevitable discovery, I think this judge, he may, and it's slim, I wouldn't bet on it, but he may say that the search was illegal.
So what I think is interesting here, you got to take something into account. He made the point. Even if it's tossed out in the state case, that doesn't necessarily mean it would be tossed out in the federal case. I don't know about that. I'm pretty sure if it was tossed out in the state case, it might be used in the federal case, but a jury, they're only humans. They would know if evidence was tossed out in the state case and for what reason. But all of this stuff, it's kind of like stacking brick by brick by brick by brick. A pretty convincing appeal, if he is convicted, for all of the things I have talked about, all of the abnormal, I think illegal things that were done to deprive this defendant of his due process rights, right to a fair trial. But if this evidence thrown out, let's say, even if evidence is thrown out or part of it's thrown out and he's convicted, there's just a lot here that could be used on an appeal. Whether an appeals court would overrule a conviction, I don't know. That's above my pay grade. But there's a whole lot of things that it seems to me his attorneys, Mangione's attorneys from the beginning, and if you watch this channel a lot, I've covered probably 15 to 20 just of the court motions that his defense attorneys have made, that the prosecution has made, and his defense attorneys have meticulously cited the due process and constitutional violations. And I think that's with an appeal in mind if he is convicted. Do we have any other clips, Colin?
So I guess the question is, John, why didn't they get a search warrant? There was the discussion, right, about do we need one, do we not need one? Why didn't they get a search warrant, and why didn't they read him his Miranda rights immediately?
Well, the Miranda rights, I think their intent, even though intent has nothing to do with it, I think they were just trying to make small talk because he was working with a rookie. I think he was waiting for the troops to arrive. But that doesn't mitigate Miranda. He had probable cause, no more questions, talk about the weather, talk about the burger he's eating, leave it at there. Again, as far as the gun goes, I'm a firm believer that the search was contemporaneously in the parking lot. I'm not putting, in my experience, I'm not putting a bag in the car without taking a quick peek to see what's in it for my own safety, and then inventory back at the precinct. But I will tell you this: I've handled many murder cases as a chief of detectives in Brooklyn, and I wish there was a detective that could kind of take custody of that and say, let's be safe and let's get the search warrant. You would have the same result.
Mark, real quick, 20 seconds. If this all gets tossed, let's say everything gets tossed, can they still prosecute him successfully?
On the state side, it's an uphill battle. But remember, you've got the feds standing right behind you, and they've been doing a tug of war to see who goes anyway. Nothing would make the feds happier than for them to step in. And I agree, the detective is absolutely right. You know, given the circumstances, when you look at the videos, the better part of valor here would have been to just wait. There was no reason not to.
Why that's important? If you live in New York City, you know this. The NYPD, and that's an NYPD guy, they don't admit if they're wrong about the weather. They have never done anything wrong in their life. And they have, in my opinion, a crooked police union behind them. The NYPD police union has never defended a crooked criminal cop. Excuse me, has never not defended a crooked criminal cop. And there's not an officer that I'm aware of who's ever acknowledged anything wrong. So that cop right there is saying, they should have got a warrant. They should have Mirandized him. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know. The judge might keep the bag and the evidence in the bag, but might toss some of what Luigi said. Or they might toss the evidence in the bag, but allow everything he told the police. Don't know. But what I do know is before this 6-day suppression hearing, the belief was, the defense attorneys, Luigi's attorneys, they're just going through the motions. All this stuff's going to be admitted as evidence and allowed at trial. Well, 6 days later, I'm showing you that's not so clear. That is not as clear that all of this stuff is going to be allowed. And it's not me saying it. It's lawyers who are pretty pro-prosecution saying they kind of violated his rights here. Now, you could be in the chat, and I've seen some people in the chat. So what? Stop making excuses, Jordan. This is not about Luigi. You could think Luigi is a monster. You could think what he allegedly did is heinous. I have said from the beginning, I don't condone political violence, period. Both morally, I don't condone it, but putting aside the morality, I don't condone it, and I don't think it's wise strategically. Because if we all start going around killing CEOs, whether justified or not, you better believe it's going to come like a boomerang back on the proletariat, quadruple as bad. You think Trump would stop at the Insurrection Act if there is an increase in political vigilantes against the capitalist pigs? Oh my God, they would deploy the police to every one of who they deem as a domestic terrorist and send you off to the gulag. So to me, I do think we need to fight back, but I don't think killing is the way. But I also, to me, how I have tried to cover this, because the mainstream media does not care. People in the mainstream media, they have damn good healthcare and they don't fucking care about your healthcare problems or lack of healthcare. Okay. I used to work at Fox. I used to work at MSNBC. I had good healthcare at both of those companies. These people are living in a separate ivory tower and they have no idea what's going on the ground for Jane and Joe's six-pack America. So to me, yeah, you could focus on the case. We have. But to me, this is about the predatory, murderous, for-profit healthcare system that is killing a whole lot more people than Luigi Mangione allegedly did. That's not to say killing anyone is right, but the media doesn't want to focus on the system, the murderous system. They don't want to focus on that. They want to focus on everything but, because they're for the status quo. And that's why we created Status Coup. And before I go on, let me remind you, we have been on the ground for just about every one of his court hearings. I have covered this, and we have covered this more than any other news outlet, mainstream or independent. I would like to be out there at the trial, which could go on for months. We currently, right now, do not have the funds to do that. We are independently funded. We do not have funding from United Healthcare. We do not have funding from Goldman Sachs. We do not have funding from the remaining Koch brother, the Waltons, the Soros, or any of the other scum buying off the Democrats and the Republicans. Our funding comes from you. So, and it's not just this. We have been out covering the invasion, the fascist invasion of LA, Chicago, DC, Alligator Alcatraz, New York City, Charlotte, and now we're in Minneapolis. It has been extremely expensive, and we're independent. So please please, if you can, if you have as low as $5 a month, statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join. Support us for as low as $5 a month so we could be on the ground covering the trial when it happens. So we can continue staying on the ground covering Trump's fascist ICE invasion and a whole lot of other things, we cover. So please support us, statuscoup.com/join. I want to play another clip to really focus on, to me, what the broader story is here that kind of got into the spotlight after this killing. And you had people on the left and people on the right agreeing, but the media has done its darndest to silence the actual story, which is, again, a predatory, murderous, evil, inhumane, mafia-esque, because the private for-profit health insurance system is just a larger mafia. It's a maze of unnecessary middlemen gouging you. We're about to see the Obamacare premiums double for millions of people. Separate from Obamacare, if you're an employee who gets your health care from your employer, your health care is going up in 2026 as much as 7%. So it's not just Obamacare going up, it's everybody. You got Medicaid being cut. All of this nonsense, all of this overcomplicated Byzantine system, all to enrich a bunch of fat, bloated asshole CEOs and their shareholders, when we could just do what every other country does, which is provide health care as a right. I want to play this. This is from the last time I was out a week ago. I was outside the courthouse. Stupidly, I didn't wear a jacket, and it was freezing, which is probably why I was sick the last few days. I want to play an interview I did with someone explaining basically what I just said, which is what a fucking crime and crooked system we have.
Out here a few times. Insurance companies save millions by having their doctors reject claims without reading them. We literally click and submit. Former Cigna doctor. You know, I think that's so important because a lot is the corporate media certainly isn't covering this aspect of things. But essentially, these insurance companies' model is to deny as many claims as they can.
Absolutely.
And also, I mean, they have like insurance conferences around the country mixed with Wall Street and this and that, where they almost brag about, you know, how little health care they provide. Yeah. Can you talk about kind of what's behind this?
Well, this sign is just to explain some of the processes that I think regular Americans, like we all kind of know that insurance companies are racketeering, but we don't necessarily know the details of how bad it is. Like upcoding, downcoding, the secret payouts to nursing homes to prevent them from transferring residents.
That was United Healthcare too.
Yes, that was United Healthcare. So this one is all about the denials process. People imagine that when your claim is denied, that somewhere an insurance company doctor is looking at your patient file and seeing if your claim matches up again and the treatment matches what the standard is. That's not how it works at all. ProPublica investigated and found that Cigna doctors, in a period of 2 months, denied 300,000 claims. The average amount of time they spent per claim, do you know what it is? 1.2 seconds. 1.2 seconds, because they have systems set up so they don't even open up the patient file. They don't even look at your file. And that's what that point and click quote is about. Click and submit. It takes them all of 10 seconds to do a batch of 50 at a time. Just click, click, click. Done. And I think this is best illustrated through Little John Cup's story. We had his story on a truck. I'm the truck coordinator for People Over Profit, and we had a truck in September that had his story on it. This time around we have different stories, but his is really a good example of the evil of this industry. So he had...
I was going to say, can you share a story?
I can share his story. So he had heart trouble, and this is recent. This is in 2022. He had heart trouble. His doctor recommended a procedure. United Healthcare denied him the procedure. That denial was through an AI algorithm. And what people don't realize is that those denials aren't even necessarily made directly by the insurance company. They outsource. So same as like you make a call to customer service and you get some guy in a foreign country answering. Same thing. They outsource to a totally different company that that company's model is just claim denials. That's all they do. That's how they make their money, is by making sure you don't get covered. That company that denied Little John Cup is EvaCore, which people nickname Evil Core. They have a proprietary algorithm that insiders nickname the dial, because you can dial up how many denials there are. And this has real world consequences. Little John Cup died after that denial. He had a massive cardiac arrest. But the worst part, and the thing that I think most Americans aren't aware of, is that the law shields corporations so that there is no way to get justice. Like literally none. There's a law called ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. Doesn't sound like it has anything to do with insurance, but it's a huge insurance loophole, like a huge legal loophole that insurance companies use and have used for decades. Literally decades, to prevent any justice or any accountability for loss of life. So there was a woman, Florence Corcoran, who was pregnant, high-risk pregnancy. Her doctor said she had to be hospitalized for the last few weeks. United Healthcare said no. She lost the baby. She tried to file a lawsuit for it against United Healthcare. It was dismissed under ERISA, and the judge said there is no remedy, state or federal, for this situation. No remedy, no legal remedy at all. No justice for her losing her baby. That was in 1992. 2007, more than a decade after that, Natalie Sarkeesian, this was like a national conversation about Natalie Sarkeesian. She died. She needed a critical liver transplant. Cigna refused to cover it. For days they refused, till media attention forced them to reverse that decision. She died hours after they reversed that decision. She should have been covered. This was a national story at the time. One of the head executives of Cigna resigned over it. It was big news, and her family brought a wrongful death lawsuit against Cigna. And their attorney said that Cigna maliciously killed her. The result of that lawsuit? Dismissal because of ERISA. And
what's so terrible about that, who writes the laws that create these loopholes? The same politicians who take money from Cigna, United, etc.
Right, exactly. Well, and that brings me back to Little John Cup, because that was in 2007. In 2022, this is so many decades since that first one I told you about with the baby that was lost. Little John Cup's wife, his widow, filed a wrongful death lawsuit. Now, she actually did manage to file it. It didn't get dismissed. But here's the thing. ERISA says that even if you can file your lawsuit, the only damages you can recover are for the cost of the procedure itself, not for loss of life. The cost of the procedure, $25,000. That's how much his life was worth in America. That is not justice.
You know what's really I'm not surprised at all because I've been doing this I've been a journalist for 15 so on years, but on the ground, about to hit 10 years, actually. But you know what's really sad about the whole thing? People like that woman who I interviewed, apologies, her name doesn't come to mind. She is actually doing the work that journalists should be doing. That explanation that she gave of this inhumane, murderous system. When I say murderous, she's giving examples of insurance companies killing people through their denials. Why is journalists not covering this? Why are journalists not explaining this? Could it have anything to do with the fact that they're running ads from United Healthcare? Could it have anything to do with their running ads from Pfizer or CVS, which has these PBM, pharmacy benefit managers, which is a whole nother scam and middleman? Why are people on the street of America, activists and concerned citizens, having to explain and bring attention to a murderous mafioso system when journalists should be, and dare I say, politicians who are public servants? You know, I get attacked. Oh, Jordan, you're a Luigi fan. You support murder. You should be condemning what he do, and I shouldn't cover it this much. I'm covering it not because of Luigi. I'm covering it because of that. Luigi just happens to have been, I say allegedly, but Luigi just happens to be the spark that relit or finally got this back into the public vein. But this, to me, is not it's about Luigi to him and to his family and his loved ones. But to me, this is not about Luigi Mangione. This is about all the people that have died because of this fucked up, I wouldn't even call it a country anymore, to be honest with you. This is a multi-trillion-dollar for-profit corporation masquerading as a government. I don't have a lot of love for him, but my former boss said it well. Cenk Uygur said it well. We have a system of legal bribery in this country. We also have a system of legal insider trading for politicians. But the horror stories I have heard, and people email me all the time, and I wish I could interview all of them, and I wish I could cover it all, of lives shortened or lives lost because of companies like United Healthcare and Cigna. And we're sitting here, and the Democratic Party, I mean, we can get to the Republicans because they're awful. Trump should be in jail over many things. The Democratic Party is sitting here rallying the troops to save subsidies to go to United Healthcare. That's what these subsidies are. These Obamacare subsidies, they are literally money that you're getting a credit, but that money is going from the government to United Healthcare and Cigna and Humana and Blue Cross. That's what we're fighting for? And you can say, well, Jordan, you got to put the fire out first. People's premiums are going to go up. Yeah, you could argue to save the premiums, or save the subsidies so that people's healthcare costs don't double in a few weeks. But at the same time, why aren't you beating the goddamn doors down for universal healthcare? Why are you defending and propping up and rallying for a system where you have to pay to live? Of course, you have to pay to live. You have to pay for shelter. You have to pay for food. I'm not saying everything should be free, but you should not have to pay just to save your life. You should not be forced to premature death if you don't have enough money, or be forced into bankruptcy because you don't have enough money, or be forced to stay in an awful fucking job, which every single one of us at one point have been in a job we don't really want, but we're in it for the healthcare. I'm sure many of you watching right now are in a job. Maybe you're sitting at a job right now because you need the healthcare. What kind of fucked up system is that in the best, wealthiest country on earth? How much more entrepreneurship could we have if you had freedom of choice? Want to talk about freedom? Well, if we had healthcare as a citizen, maybe you don't need to stay in that fucked up job. Maybe you're willing to start that restaurant. that health research company, that farm, that collective that, farms healthy food. But you need health care for yourself and your children, right? I want to make a quick detour here because, as a reminder, we are still on the ground. John Farina, our cameraman, is on the ground. JT, our reporter, is going to be rejoining him over the weekend in Minneapolis because Trump has sent his ICE thugs to terrorize the Somali community, who are U.S. citizens living in Minneapolis. But yesterday, there's been a recurring theme of ICE and Border Patrol targeting journalists, harassing journalists, and targeting us because we've been out there in L.A. and down at Alligator Alcatraz in Florida, in New York City covering the ICE raids. We were in D.C. covering the National Guard invasion for 2 weeks. Chicago, we were there for almost 2 months. We were in Charlotte, and now we're in Minneapolis. Again, extremely expensive. I know I'm a broken record, folks, but Mama told me if you don't advocate for yourself, no one will. We need you. If you don't have an extra $5 a month, that's okay. No shame. If you do have as low as $5 a month, I need your help to continue this. I need your help to fund us to stay on the ground. I am going to hopefully be getting back on the ground more often. It's been a little tough with a 7-month-old and a 3-year-old. But please, if you value this on-the-ground reporting, sign up today for as low as $5 a month. By the way, as I speak, welcome new Status Coup member Thomas signed up and Jean signed up to our website. So that's statuscoup.com/join. I want to show you this clip because yesterday our cameraman had a pepper spray canister pointed at him by ICE for the crime of shooting their activities with a camera. Let's show you.
Or half a second. I got the wrong pepper spray clip. Give me just.
Okay. Shout out while we're working. Vonda just became a Status Coup YouTube member. So heeding the call. Thank you, Vonda. Appreciate it. And as a reminder, I want to make sure you know, as a Status Coup member, we also do monthly members calls. We're late. We didn't do it this month yet, but we have a good excuse. We've been on the ground, so it's been a little busy. But we do a monthly members call with our members through not Zoom, but a similar program. We do behind the scenes videos for our members, and you get merchandise discounts in our store. You got it, Colin?
Yeah, I got it.
Stand back there with everybody else.
Is it your press? Don't you got press over there?
No.
You got with the live view?
You go back, you're going to get sprayed. I already told you once, if I tell you again, you're going to get sprayed. Go back with everybody else. You can record all you want. You see everyone?
Yeah, I see press over there.
You see everybody else over here, right?
No, I see press over there.
He's with us.
Oh my God. Oh my God, okay, they're taking out their weapons.
Copy, weapons out. Does it appear anyone is injured from the vehicle accident?
Let's stand back there with everybody else.
Is it your press?
What's that? No.
Don't you got press over there?
No.
You got with the live view?
You go back, you're going to get sprayed.
No.
I already told you once, if I tell you again, you're going to get sprayed. Go back with everybody else. You can record all you want. You see everyone?
Yeah, I see press.
So let me get something straight here. I would ask the masked vigilante thug, because we have secret police in this country who are wearing masks, who are getting $50,000 bonuses to break the law. There's now press areas in the streets of America where journalists can go but not go. So he can go there in the little corner of the street with the press because ICE agent says so. That's not how the First Amendment works. You don't get to designate where the press can cover your illegal activities in the middle of the streets. No. Secondly, so basically, let's just translate it. John asked, why is that member of the press allowed to stand next to you and shoot what you're doing, but I can't? He's with us. We weren't able to confirm who that was, but there has been journalists, air quotes on the journalists, embedded with ICE, basically allowed by ICE to go around with them. A lot of them have been the propagandists at Fox News Channel who go around glorifying these illegal fucking secret police. But essentially, the propagandist, no, he's with us. He's allowed to stand with us and shoot our illegal behavior. But you got to go over there. That's where we're at with this fascism. And by the way, he's pointing pepper spray at our cameraman's face. I mean, all of this shit, we're just becoming numb to this. All of this is scandalous. All of this is illegal. All of this is criminal. They have shot at journalists, including ours. They have struck our Tina Desiree Berg in the leg with rubber bullets. They hit John with rubber bullets. They've hit JT with pepper balls. They've tear gassed journalists. And by the way, I don't think journalists are any more, we're not putting journalists on a pedestal. They shouldn't be doing this to non-journalists. Nobody should be getting chemical weapons that are, let me repeat, forbidden in war. They are banned from war, tear gas, after World War I. I'll tell you, I said to John, listen, John is my friend. He's not just a colleague. We're friends. And John, he's, excuse my French, he's got big balls, this guy. He does not hesitate to rush into danger, even though he shouldn't be worried about his safety, because in America, he's not interfering with their actions. He's covering their actions. But the bottom line is, this is state-sponsored terrorism. Let me repeat, this is state-sponsored terrorism. I'm not sure. Things are fluid right now. We might be live tonight from Minneapolis. I got to talk to John. There's something going on, I believe, around 8 o'clock Eastern time. So stay tuned for that. If we're not going to be live, we'll have a fresh video up of more fuckery from Minneapolis. But again, I just ask you, the bottom line is, whatever our audience is right now, between Twitter and YouTube, it's about 800. If even 1/10, if even 50 to 100 people in the audience sign up as a paid member, or if you're already a paid member, donate whatever you can, $5. We can continue to fund this. And we are, let me be clear, we're making a difference, folks. We are waking more people up to what's going on. We're waking even more MAGA up. I can't tell you, I have talked to conservatives. I have talked to people in my family who voted for Trump that are seeing our footage, and it is changing their mind. I have talked to traditional vote blue, no matter who Democrats who have seen our footage and saying the Democratic Party is not doing enough. And hey, maybe you've been right for years that they're fucking corrupt and not much better for the Republicans. So we are waking up the masses, but if we aren't able to continue, and it is expensive, full disclosure, right now, we're spending about 10 grand a month just on travel, not on paying people, just on the travel costs. Chicago, Charlotte, DC, now Minneapolis, it's expensive between the flights, hotels, renting a car, gas, food, safety equipment we've had to get. It's really expensive. If you can, please sign up, because there's a lot of people who send you fundraising emails, news outlets, politicians, nonprofits. I'm not saying they're not good, but what I am saying is very few of them, virtually none, are doing anything beyond, working in an office, doing a show in a studio, and that has value, but this is different. Getting out there in the trenches is very important. I think it's very important to see up close fascism's ugly face and its victims. And that's why we've been covering ICE so much. So please, please support us. Again, we might be live a little bit later, not sure. Thank you to everybody who's been supporting us. By the way, we are almost at, for the year, 250,000 new subscribers on YouTube. So we have right now 562,000 total, but we've almost gained 250,000 just this year, which is awesome. So thank you to all our new subscribers. Some of you have found us as a result of Midas Touch, who was nice enough to have us on. Some of you have found us from other channels. Some of you have found us just for whatever reason, YouTube decided to show us. However you got here, welcome. And if you could go that just a little extra mile and signing up, you know, so many, I mean, 99% of news outlets in this country are corporate funded, really, are funded by big corporations or big advertisers and big sponsors. We have avoided all that. And it is a lot harder to operate without that. But it's also a lot more liberating and a lot purer. So please, please, again, I know it's a broken record, but somebody's got to ask you, and I'm fine with it being me. Thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day.